Some bought into his extreme ideology. Some didn't agree with the racism, but were willing to vote for him anyway. Many didn't know much about politics at all, but just got...
I just wanted to say quickly that this is why it's important to learn history. I think it's kind of what you said before, how it repeats itself. For me, it's shocking, like, even what they just said. Oh, some people thought he was kind of racist, but I like his economical arguments, so I'm going to vote for him anyway. And isn't that what a lot of us do? Welcome back, everyone.
Yeah, this is OverSimplified Part 2, Hitler.
Yes.
We just finished recording the first one, so it's the second one. We upload them on the same day, like you want. So we listen to you what you want.
And no further ado, right? We can just start?
Yeah, if you want more context, go back to the first video, but I think you already watched that, so let's begin.
Since Germany's military had to be reduced, Hitler could no longer remain a soldier after the war, but he kept working for the army as an informant. After the war, communists in Germany had attempted a revolution, and the government was worried about communism in general. So Hitler was tasked with infiltrating and reporting on any new political parties that could pose a communist threat. A new party called the German Workers' Party threw up a whole bunch of red flags, so Hitler went along to one of their meetings, but found that they weren't communist at all. They were extreme right and shared many of his extreme beliefs, so he left the army and signed up to join the party. His fantastic speaking abilities impressed the party's leadership and supporters, and he very quickly rose to the top. He decided the party needed a makeover, so he renamed it to the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or Nazi for short, and he gave it a new color scheme. The Nazis weren't very specific on policy, but Hitler made extravagant promises to return Germany to its former glory by undoing the Treaty of Versailles and reuniting all ethnic Germans into one nation. He also said that only pure Aryan people should be allowed to be citizens and that all Jews would lose their citizenship. These ideas were already common in extreme right politics, but what set the Nazis apart was Hitler himself, and they quickly became the leading party on the extreme right. Many of the political parties in Germany at the time had paramilitary wings, and the Nazis were no different. Hitler set up the very descriptive Whole Protection Detachment, later changed to the very delightful Gymnastic and Sports Division, and finally settling on the ominous Storm Detachment, or S.
Yeah, I just want to say that if you want, try to Google Hitler on YouTube or on Google him on Google, and listen to his speeches. Like, even if you don't understand German, I don't. But I mean, he was a remarkable speaker, and that's a big part of his history and his success of going to the top of the party, was that he really was a person who made a difference. Like the party, like, it was here, I think, that he was the 55th member. So it was not a big group, and the groups like that were, it was a lot of them, those small parties. But he was such an important factor because his speeches were so interesting to such big groups of people, and it grew exponentially.
Yeah, even if you don't understand what he's saying, you can see he's like emotional, but not too emotional, charismatic, and he's like,
but he had those speeches, nailed down to a beat. Like, he knew when to raise his voice, when to lower it. He played with the rhythm, he played with the words. Like, in that one thing, he was a genius, and that was the reason why the party became so big, and it kind of all the other parties. I don't know. It is not the word, but ate. But they had all those parties and took them to the party.
They started supporting them as well.
Yeah, they just became the part of the NSDAP.
Okay. Yeah.
And also there was this one argument they had. I'm terrible with English. Sorry, it's late and I'm kind of tired. And by English, it's not so. It's even worse than it's normally. But I wanted to say that there was this one instance that Hitler had some arguments with other party members, and some people wanted him out, or they wanted him to not be a leader. And Hitler gave the ultimatum. He said that either he will leave, or they would make him a leader of the party without, and the party could not abolish him. Like,
I think I heard about it. Yeah.
like he would become a leader
Like a king of the party.
Yeah, and he would have all the power, all the authority, and he was so important to them that they say, okay,
I think
if that's what we need to do to keep you with us, we will do that.
Did you mention that in the Oversimplified video, maybe? Or maybe you just told me about it, but
I don't think it was oversimplified. Okay. But yeah, I mean, just look some of his speeches. There is one, I think, at the Crop Factory, the speech in the Crop Factory on YouTube. It's a very short one, but you can see like a bit of that. And yeah, it's amazing how you can become a leader of such a big country like Germany just by being such a good speaker, because he was not a very intelligent person. He was not wealthy. He didn't have like some he fight in the war, but he didn't have some heroic actions. He didn't do any heroic actions.
I think it was like a combination of all that. He was a good speaker. The things he said, of course, were important too, because that was the attitudes of many people. He played off that feeling that they were betrayed, like you said in the last part.
Yeah, that's true. But I think that if he would say different things, I think he would become a leader too. Like, maybe he couldn't change his rhetoric completely, but I think for many of the people there back then, it didn't matter as much what he said. I mean, it did, but not as much as how he said those things.
Well, I think what I think is that Germans at the time, they wanted to feel powerful again, and they wanted to feel hope for the future, because life was very difficult in Germany at that moment for everyone. So yeah, you're saying if you're spreading different ideas, but with the same kind of hope, okay, we'll get great again by doing something else.
Yeah, but that's kind of the unbelievable part in all that, because the things he was promising back then, they sounded like craziness, you know. He said, "Oh, we will abolish Treaty of Versailles. We will have Germany twice or three times as big as it is now." And
yeah, because politics don't say stuff like that right now.
Yeah, they do, but
still do.
But a lot of people knew that it's just, you know, political talk, and that it will not happen. Like when Trump said that Mexico will pay for the wall, like most of the people knew that. Yeah, he will probably build something, but I don't think Mexico will pay for that. Yeah. But with Hitler, he actually did those stuff. Like, all the things that he said, he just went and did it.
So, in a way, he was a very good politician, because he delivered on all of his promises.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that his promises back then weren't as important, because people hoped for them. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't something like, oh, it's a very good plan. It's a very
No, just wanted a strong leader, a strong, charismatic, convincing leader, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, can you go back?
Say for different. Hitler set up the very descriptive Whole Protection Detachment, later changed to the very delightful Gymnastic and Sports Division, and finally settling on the ominous Storm Detachment, or SA for short. Their job was to defend Nazi Party meetings and intimidate political opponents, and they would frequently engage in battles with communists on the streets. Since the Allies had demanded a reduction in Germany's military size, many trained soldiers were left unemployed. They liked the Nazi ideology, and it was only natural for them to join the SA, which grew larger and larger over time. The new democratic government that formed after World War I was pretty weak and ineffective. In order to pay reparations to the Allies, it started printing more money. The problem is that printing money doesn't actually give a country more money, it just makes money less valuable. So as the country printed more and more money, it became worth less and less, and the currency crashed. In 1919, $1 US was worth about 4 German marks. By December 1923, $1 US was equal to 4.2 trillion marks. The price of bread rose to 200 billion marks. Banknotes became worthless. Unsurprisingly, in such an economic crisis, Germany struggled to pay the Allies. The French were pissed about this, so they occupied the Ruhr, an area full of factories, and took the economic output from the area as payment. They treated the German civilians badly, and in total, approximately 130 Germans were killed during the occupation. Germans were furious, and Hitler and the Nazis thought that now would be a great time to lead a revolution. In November 1923, inspired by something a certain bold Italian man did a year earlier, Hitler stormed a meeting at a beer hall and called for an uprising against the government. With his supporters, he marched on the streets of Munich, hoping the police would join his side. They did not. Hitler was put on trial for treason. He could have been sentenced to life, but the right-wing judges thought he was a pretty cool guy. Hitler knew the judges and knew that they would be lenient, so he took the opportunity to make impassioned speeches during the trial. And in the end, he was sentenced to just 5 years in prison, of which he only served 9 months, and when I say prison, it was more like a pleasant hotel stay where he had plenty of time to write a book. The whole affair was covered by the media nationwide, and it made Hitler famous. Hitler and his extreme message were now known throughout Germany, but the everyday German still didn't care much for him. In the 1928 election, the Nazis only won about 2% of the vote. Many were still intimidated by all the violence and the shouting and how unpolitician-like he was, but a new economic crisis would change all of that. To help Germany pay its reparations, America agreed to give it loans. In October 1929, the Wall Street crash happened, and America wanted its money back. The economic strain this put on an already struggling Germany was severe. Unemployment skyrocketed, poverty was widespread, and Germans were sick of it. It was clear that the newly formed democracy wasn't working. In the face of crisis, Germans began moving to the political extremes. If you were German and wanted change, your choices now were either the communists or the Nazis. Hitler claimed that he was the only one who could return Germany to its former glory. The Nazi Party used propaganda to make Hitler seem like a great and powerful man, and they gave the German people a scapegoat to blame for all their suffering. The promise of a single strong dictator was a breath of fresh air for Germans after years of failing democracy. Some bought into his extreme ideology. Some didn't agree with the racism, but were willing to vote for him anyway. Many didn't know much about politics at all, but just got...
I just wanted to say quickly that this is why it's important to learn history. I think it's kind of what you said before, how it repeats itself. For me, it's shocking, like, even what they just said. Oh, you know, some people thought he was kind of racist, but I like his economical arguments, so I'm going to vote for him anyway. And isn't that what a lot of us do?
Yeah, and I just wanted to say something. If we have any Polish viewers, because I know we have
I thought you would say that, yeah.
Like, I think you may notice some parallels. To people who are not Polish, we have this far-right party in Poland, which has around, I don't know, 6-7% of votes in every election. But you may notice some similarities. Like, for example, meeting in pubs to drink beer and talk about politics. Like, where do you think they get this idea from? This guy.
And it's a very popular thing to say that this party has good economical views.
But they also that fact that you will say that, oh yes, I don't agree with everything. I don't agree with the hate for this group of people and that group of people and this group of people. But yeah, their economical ideas are very good. So yeah, like, learn history and see the full picture, because I'm not saying that they don't have people like Hitler. I mean,
of course.
And I don't say that as a good thing. I'm saying that they don't have such a strong leaders and charismatic people, fortunately. But like, you need to really see the history, and because it can repeat itself. And like, people in United States, like you too, like, learn history and see some parallels, because you don't want to repeat the same thing that happened at the beginning of the 20th century.
Yeah, and I think even what you're saying now, there is another dimension to it. The most important thing is the division as well. When there are tough times, people are always divided, and their extremes always grow, and it's always in the favor of someone else, not the people to be so divided.
Yeah, but what I want to say is that for the Germans, their life improved after Hitler came to power, and that's a fact. Not for a long time, because there was the war and they lost it, so not so good for them. But after Hitler came to power, the life of the average German,
you don't always see immediately.
But it went better. But yeah, just be very suspicious of any groups that will try to blame everything bad on a certain groups of people, and their narrative is like, oh, we would be so good, it would be so great
if not only
for those people or those people or that people.
I think it's like that politics are always like that in every country. Almost everywhere we have one party, one big opposing party, and then each other say, well, at least we are not like them, and it's because of them that
I don't think it's bad if you have two parties and they are against each other. I mean, I think that's
normal,
healthy.
but you know what I mean with the strong division of the Democrats and the Republicans. I think the best example that you are like two different nations within a country.
Yeah, but it's becoming more popular in other countries as well. But what I mean is if you are not against a certain party, but if you are against a group of people like minorities or immigrants or no, you know what I mean. Like, and if you see that there are some leaders are looking for scapegoats, then your life may improve a little bit, but at what cost?
Yeah, and especially if it's a hot subject and something that is easily noticeable that people are already angry about, and if someone takes that and tells you, we'll get rid of this and your life will be amazing because look at all these issues that happen because of it and only because of it. Because of course issues happen because of different groups, but it's like you're saying, if someone makes that the only reason, it's never good.
Got caught up in the racism, but were willing to vote for him anyway. Many didn't know much about politics at all, but just got caught up in the hype. Election after election, the Nazis became more and more popular, until in 1932, they became the biggest party in the German parliament. Hitler came to truly believe that he was some sort of great, destined savior of Germany. He turned megalomaniac. He decided to run for president, and did surprisingly well, but still lost to the extremely popular World War I general, Paul von Hindenburg. Since he was now the leader of the biggest party though, he demanded President Hindenburg make him Chancellor. But Hindenburg was reluctant, seeing that Hitler was clearly such a big racist. Industry leaders urged Hindenburg to give Hitler the chancellorship, fearing the rising support for communism, and leader of the Center Party von Papen, who had been secretly negotiating with Hitler, said to Hindenburg, "How about we make Hitler Chancellor on the condition that I get to be Vice-Chancellor and most government jobs go to us moderate conservatives? That way, I'll get to keep my power, we'll get to keep our power and we'll control Hitler like he's our angry little puppet." What could possibly go wrong? As it turned out, everything. Hitler became Chancellor of Germany in January 1933, but he was not yet a dictator. In February, the German parliament building was set on fire. Historians still aren't sure who did it, and many suspect the Nazis did it themselves, but Hitler blamed the communists, and he convinced President Hindenburg to sign an emergency decree allowing him to imprison all communists and other political opponents. Communists and others were sent off to the first concentration camp in Dachau. At this time, the elderly President Hindenburg passed away, giving Hitler the perfect opportunity. He introduced a law to parliament that would allow him to make all future laws and decisions entirely on his own. With his political opponents imprisoned and the SA intimidating others, Hitler's law passed. Just 2 months after becoming Chancellor, Hitler was now a dictator. He still had one problem. The leader of the SA wanted the SA to take over the job of the regular German army, and the German army didn't like that idea. Hitler needed to maintain the support of his professionally trained German army, more so than his rough and rowdy SA. So one night in June 1934, he had Röhm and many other of his own SA officers rounded up and murdered. While he was at it, he took the opportunity to brutally settle some personal scores as well. Politicians who had disagreed with him in the past, reporters who had printed negative articles about him, one guy who did absolutely nothing, but they thought he was someone else. In some cases, even their families were murdered. In total, up to 200 people were killed in what became known as the Night of the Long Knives. The army, now satisfied that they wouldn't be replaced, pledged total allegiance to their new Führer, and Hitler's control was now absolute. Life in Germany changed violently. Freedom of the press, expression, and public assembly were suspended. Jews were initially branded and their businesses boycotted. And eventually, Hitler would go on to have 6 million Jewish men, women, and children killed in concentration camps. Hundreds of thousands of people were forced into sterilization for physical and mental imperfections. The Hitler Youth became a way to brainwash the young. Boys were trained to fight and returned home from camp violent. Girls were told their purpose was to have many pure Aryan children, and they would sometimes return from camp pregnant. When their parents were understandably horrified, their children would threaten to turn them over to the Gestapo for standing in the way of Germany's greatness. The standard greeting changed, and you could be sent to a concentration camp for not using it. This way, it seemed like everyone was a Nazi supporter. If you dared oppose Hitler or speak out against him in any way, you also would be sent to a concentration camp. German nationalism captivated the young Adolf. Extreme ideology and anti-Semitism festered in him as a young man living a hard life on the streets. Germany's defeat in the First World War filled him with hatred and a thirst for vengeance. A political movement that treated him like a god, and hundreds of thousands looking up to him as their savior, made him a megalomaniac. And soon, his aggressive foreign policies would drag the world into a second tragic global conflict, otherwise known as
Yeah, I liked how he summed it up in the end. He really oversimplified it, you could say, but this to outline this particular stages of what happened in a simple way. Yeah, it's as I said in the last part was more about his childhood, so it was more. I mean, I know he was a person, but it's more jarring to watch about him grieving his mother when you didn't really think about it like that, and here to just sort of see how he came to power as well. Did you remember this video? Well, because I suppose you watched it quite a while ago.
I remember that I watched it a couple of times, but like I said, I watched some documentaries about Hitler and Nazis, and I read some.
Yeah, the book that we are going to recommend on part 1.
Yeah,
it
I think it's quite a motivational story, also because even if you are watching this and you are homeless right now, you never know. You may become a leader of your own country soon.
I'm laughing because when they said that he wrote the book in prison, my first thought was like, oh, I should really hurry up writing my book. If you could do it in 5 months, maybe I could do it too.
Nine, I think it was 9 months.
9 months, yeah. 9 months instead of 5 years.
You can have a new person in the world in 9 months, so you can have a new book too.
That is very deep.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Maybe you should go to prison. You would have more time to write a new book.
But if I go to prison, I want to go to Scandinavian prison.
Oh yeah, who wouldn't?
Yeah. Okay, I think we are getting off topic a little bit. Well, thanks for recommending more oversimplified videos to us. We'll still watch a lot.
Comment if you can, because we really enjoy reading your comments, and especially under oversimplified videos.
There's always a discussion.
They are the most interesting comments, and we learned some things reading them, and we have some ideas for the future too.
Yeah, and we enjoy your discussions. Sometimes we see you guys disagree on some matters, so it's really, I think it's nice and it's important because it's good to see different outlooks, whether you then decide who's right or who's not right, but it's always nice to be aware of different ideas. Yeah. And so it's nice that you also fact-checked the oversimplified guy and you let us know if something is not exactly correct. So thank you very much for that, because it's like we're watching it together, really.
Yeah, it is. And we enjoy it very much, so don't stop doing that.
Yeah, please don't.
Bear with us and comment something still.
You always leave us suggestions what we should watch from Oversimplified next. You can continue doing that. We will for sure still watch a lot of videos from
And if you don't want to miss any of our new videos, including Oversimplified videos, subscribe to our channel.
That was a nice segue? See. I do not know. English failed me. But yeah, I'll see you in the next video.
Goodbye, guys.
Bye.